The ship called Eternal Patience had traveled between stars for 6,000 years. It was old, but its crew was older. Ambassador Velthrix had been alive when the ship was first built. He remembered the day they launched it into the black ocean of space. He remembered because he remembered everything. His kind did not forget. His kind did not age. His kind did not die. Velthrix was a being of light. His body was not made of flesh or bone. It was made of energy that flowed and shifted like water in a glass. He had no heart that could stop beating. He had no lungs that could stop breathing. He simply existed as he had existed for 12,000 years, as he would exist for 12,000 more. The galaxy was full of beings like him. The Concordat, they called themselves. A union of 40,000 species spread across 1,000,000 worlds. Some were made of crystal that grew slowly over centuries. Some were clouds of gas that thought in patterns of lightning. Some were machines that had outlived the organic creatures who built them. All of them shared one thing. They did not die. Death was a concept they knew from old records. Primitive species sometimes died. Animals died. Plants died. But intelligent life? Thinking beings who could build cities and ships and reach for the stars. They found ways to live forever. It was the natural order of things. Intelligence meant survival. Survival meant eternity. So when the long-range sensors detected radio signals from an unremarkable yellow star, Velthrix was not worried. Another species was waking up. Another civilization was learning to speak to the universe. This happened every few centuries. The Concordat would send a ship, make contact, and welcome the newcomers into the family of eternal beings. The signals from the yellow star were strange, though. The translation machines worked on them for many days. When they finally decoded the language, they found something that made no sense. The signals spoke of death, not death as punishment, not death as metaphor, death as a simple fact of life. The beings who sent these signals talked about death the way Velthrix might talk about sunrise. It was normal to them, expected, unavoidable. Velthrix called a meeting of his senior advisors. They gathered in the great hall of the Eternal Patience, beings of light and crystal and ancient metal, and they listened to the translated signals. A voice spoke of someone called a grandfather. The grandfather had lived for 90 years. Then he had died. The voice was sad, but not surprised. This was how things worked, the voice said. Everyone died eventually. 90 years. Velthrix had once spent 90 years deciding what color to paint his meditation chamber. These creatures lived entire lives in that time. And then they ended. The crystal being called Crystal spoke first. His voice was like wind chimes in a storm. This must be a translation error. No intelligent species could be so short-lived. They would accomplish nothing. They would learn nothing. They would be gone before they understood anything about the universe. A machine called Unit 7 disagreed. The translation is accurate. I have checked it 47 times. These beings are describing actual death. Permanent ending of consciousness. They appear to accept it as normal. Then they are not intelligent, Crystal said. They are animals with complicated communication. True intelligence finds a way to survive. Velthrix raised a hand made of golden light. The others fell silent. We will not know until we meet them. Set course for the yellow star. We will see these death speakers for ourselves. The journey took 3 years. In that time, Velthrix studied everything the sensors could tell him about the third planet from the yellow star. The beings there called it Earth. They called themselves humans. They had been sending signals into space for only 100 years. Before that, they had not known how. Before that, they had been fighting each other with weapons made of metal and fire. Before that, they had been living in caves. 100 years. Velthrix had taken longer naps. And yet, in that tiny span of time, these humans had gone from caves to signals that crossed the stars. The speed of their progress was disturbing. The Concordat had taken 11,000 years to develop faster than light travel. The humans were already working on theories that might get them there in another century or two. How? How could beings who died so quickly accomplish so much? The Eternal Patience entered orbit around Earth on a day the humans called Tuesday. Velfrix sent a message of peace in 17 different human languages. The response came within hours. The humans were eager to meet their visitors from the stars. A small ship rose from the planet's surface. It was crewed by Concordat standards, metal and fire and desperate engineering. It carried 12 humans in suits designed to keep them alive in the cold of space. Velthrix noted that the suits were necessary. Without them, the humans would die in minutes. The vacuum would kill them. The cold would kill them. The radiation would kill them. Everything could kill them. And yet they had come anyway. The human ship docked with the Eternal Patience. The airlock opened, and Velthrix met a mortal being for the first time in his 12,000 years of life. Her name was Elena Vasquez. She was 67 years old. Her hair was gray, and her face was lined with wrinkles. She walked slowly, carefully, as if her body might break if she moved too fast. She was, by human standards, old. She would die soon. Maybe in 10 years. Maybe in 20. A blink of an eye. She looked up at Velthrix with eyes that held no fear. Only curiosity. Only wonder. Only a fierce and burning hunger to understand. "Hello," she said. "We've been waiting a long time to meet someone like you." Velthrix felt something he had not felt in thousands of years. He felt uncertain. This small, fragile, dying creature stood before him as if she were his equal, as if her brief spark of life meant as much as his. Eternal flame. He did not know yet how right she was. He did not know yet that he was looking at the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever produced. He only knew that when Elena Vasquez smiled at him, something in the universe shifted, and nothing would ever be the same again. The meeting room on the Eternal Patience was designed for beings who lived forever. The chairs were made of crystal that had been grown over 500 years. The table was carved from a single piece of stone taken from a dead moon. The lights were living creatures, small balls of gentle fire that had burned for 3,000 years and would burn for 3,000 more. Elena Vasquez sat in one of the crystal chairs. She was uncomfortable. The chair had not been made for human bodies. But she did not complain. She was too busy looking at everything with those hungry eyes. Velthrix sat across from her. His advisors stood behind him. Crystal the Crystal Being. Unit 7, the Ancient Machine. Morthin the Elder, whose body was made of shadows and starlight. They had all lived for thousands of years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched stars be born and die. None of them knew what to make of the small creature sitting before them. "You have existed for only 67 orbital cycles?" Velthrix asked. He was certain the translation was wrong. It had to be wrong. 67 years, yes, Elena said. "I'm one of the older members of our delegation, actually. Captain Rodriguez over there is only 34. 34? Velthrix had once spent 34 years reading a single book. He had taken his time. There was no rush. There was never any rush. And after you have existed for... How long do humans exist? Average lifespan is about 80 years, Elena said. Some people live to 100. A few rare ones make it a bit longer. But eventually, everyone dies. The room fell silent. The Concordat delegation did not know what to say. The concept was too strange, too horrible, too impossible. Morthin spoke. His voice was like wind through dead leaves. "You are saying that your consciousness simply ends, your thoughts stop, your memories disappear, you become nothing? That's death, yes. And you have found no way to prevent this? Elena shrugged. We've tried. We keep trying. We've extended our lifespans a lot over the centuries. 1,000 years ago, most humans died before they reached 40. Now we have medicine and technology that helps us live longer. But we haven't figured out how to live forever. Maybe we never will. But you keep trying, Velthrix said. Of course. Humans don't give up easily. The Concordat delegation exchanged looks. This was beyond their understanding. Every intelligent species in the galaxy had solved the problem of death. It was the first great challenge of any civilization. You could not build an empire if your leaders kept dying. You could not develop technology if your scientists kept dying. You could not explore the stars if your pilots kept dying. Death was a problem. Intelligent beings solved problems. Therefore, intelligent beings solved death. But humans had not solved death. And yet they had built cities and nations and sent ships into space. They had split atoms and mapped genomes and created thinking machines. They had done all of this while dying, while knowing they were dying, while watching their loved ones die around them. How? Why? What drove them? Velthrix asked this question. He had to know. Elena was quiet for a long moment. She looked at her hands. They were thin and spotted with age. They would not exist in 20 years. She knew this. She accepted this. I think, she said slowly, that we accomplish things because we know we will die. Not in spite of it. Because of it. I do not understand. You have forever, Elena said. If you want to learn something, you can take 1,000 years. If you want to build something, you can take 10,000 years. There's no rush. There's never any rush. Time is infinite for you. Yes, this is the advantage of immortality, is it? Elena leaned forward. Her old eyes were sharp and bright. When you have forever, does anything feel urgent? Does anything feel important? If you can always do something tomorrow, why do it today? Velthrix had no answer. He thought about the last 1,000 years of his life. What had he accomplished? He had attended meetings. He had read reports. He had drifted through the decades like a leaf on a slow river. There had been no hurry. There was never any hurry. We don't have tomorrow, Elena said. We have today. Right now. This moment. And we know it might be our last. Every second is precious because we have so few of them. Every day is a gift because we only get so many. We can't waste time. We don't have time to waste. You are saying mortality gives you motivation? Mortality gives us fire, Elena said. It makes us burn. We burn fast and bright because we know the flame won't last. And while we burn, we light up everything around us. Crixtel made a sound like breaking glass. It was laughter, but also fear. This is madness. You are describing a species that is constantly dying, constantly afraid, constantly desperate. Not afraid, Elena said. Not desperate. Alive. Truly alive. Every moment matters to us. Every choice matters. Every person matters. Because we know it could all end at any time. She stood up from the crystal chair. She was small and old and fragile. A strong wind could knock her down. A fall from a table could kill her. She was made of soft tissue and brittle bone and blood that could spill so easily. And yet she stood before the immortals like a queen. You've lived for thousands of years, she said. But have you really lived? Have you felt the urgency of a moment that will never come again? Have you loved someone knowing you only have a few years together? Have you worked on something knowing you might not live to see it finished? No one answered. That's what mortality gives us, Elena said. It gives us meaning. It gives us purpose. It gives us a reason to get up every morning and fight for something better, because we know the morning won't last forever. Velthrix looked at this dying creature, this brief spark of consciousness that would be gone in a handful of years. And for the first time in his long, long life, he wondered if he was the one who was truly alive, or if he had just been existing. There was a difference, he realized. And the mortals knew something about that difference that the immortals had forgotten long ago. The Council of Eternity met on a station that orbited a dying star. The station was old. It had been built before most of the current council members were born. It had watched the star slowly fade from bright yellow to dim red over 50,000 years. One day, the star would die completely. The council would simply move to another station, another star. Death meant nothing to them, or so they had believed. Velthrix stood before the council. Behind him, screens showed images from Earth, images of war, images of death, images that made the immortal beings shift uncomfortably in their ancient seats. The humans have a concept called sacrifice, Velthrix said. It means to give up something precious for the sake of others. In their case, they give up the most precious thing they have: their lives. The screen showed soldiers running toward enemy fire, pilots diving their aircraft into enemy ships, men and women throwing themselves onto explosives to protect their friends. Again and again, humans choosing to die so that others might live. "This is madness," said Counselor Vexarn, a being of pure thought who existed as patterns in a quantum field. "Self-preservation is the highest imperative of any intelligent being. These creatures are defective." "They are not defective," Velthrix said. "They are different. They have made peace with death in a way we cannot understand. And this peace has made them dangerous." Military analyst Crickstall stepped forward. His crystal body caught the light of the dying star and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the chamber. "I have studied human military history. What I found disturbs me." The screens changed. They showed numbers now, statistics, charts and graphs that told a story of violence on a scale the Concordat had never known. In the last 100 years alone, humans have fought 2 global conflicts. The first killed approximately 40 million of them. The second killed approximately 80 million. These numbers represent significant portions of their total population. The council murmured in shock. 80 million deaths in a species that lived less than a century. The loss was unimaginable. "And yet they continued," Crickstall said. "They did not surrender. They did not flee. They fought until one side could no longer fight. They fought with weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. They used these weapons on each other. They saw the horror they could create, and they built more weapons. Bigger weapons. Weapons that could end all life on their planet. Why?" Counselor Vexarn demanded. "Why would any species create weapons that could destroy themselves?" "Because they were willing to use them," Velthrix said. "And that willingness gave them power. They call it deterrence. The idea that no enemy will attack if the cost of attack is mutual destruction. They lived for decades under this threat. They raised children under this threat. They built their civilization on the edge of total annihilation. This is insanity. This is humanity." The screens showed more images now. Not just war, but the aftermath of war. Soldiers returning home broken in body and mind. Widows weeping over graves. Children growing up without parents. The cost of human conflict was measured in tears and trauma across generations. And yet, the screen showed something else too. Cities rebuilt from rubble. Former enemies shaking hands. Children playing in parks where bombs had once fallen. Humans did not just fight. They recovered. They forgave. They moved forward. They are resilient, Crystal said. Terrifyingly resilient. They experience loss that would break any immortal mind, and they continue. They bury their dead, mourn them briefly, and then return to life. It is as if death is simply part of their existence, a familiar companion rather than a feared enemy. Elder Morathan spoke from his seat of shadows. You said they were dangerous. Explain. Velthrix turned to face the council directly. An immortal soldier fights carefully. Every wound is a risk. Every battle is a calculation. We have so much to lose. Thousands of years of memories. Thousands of years of experience. We cannot afford to die. This is wisdom, Counselor Vexarn said. This is weakness, Velthrix replied. The humans have nothing to lose. They are already dying. Every moment of their existence, they are dying. Death holds no terror for them because death is always with them. It walks beside them from the moment they are born. He gestured to the screens. They showed a human soldier, young and scared, jumping on a grenade to save his squad. The explosion tore his body apart. His friends lived. He knew he would die, Velthrix said. He had perhaps 50 years left. 50 years of love and joy and experience. And he gave it all away in an instant to save men he had known for only a few months. We cannot understand this. We cannot predict this. We cannot defend against this. One soldier's sacrifice changes nothing, Counselor Vexarn said. One soldier's sacrifice inspires 1,000 more, Velthrix replied. Humans do not fight as individuals. They fight as a species. They draw strength from each other's courage. When one human dies for others, the others fight harder, die more willingly. They call their dead heroes. They build monuments to them. They tell their children stories about them. The council was silent. We have conquered death, Velthrix said. We thought this made us strong. But the humans have embraced death. They have turned it into a weapon. They fight with the fury of those who know they have nothing left to lose. And that fury is something we cannot match. Elder Morathan leaned forward. What are you saying, Ambassador? Velthrix's light flickered. It was the equivalent of a human sigh. I am saying that we have discovered the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they are powerful, not because they are advanced, but because they are not afraid to die. And a species that does not fear death. Fears nothing. The dying star cast red light across the chamber. The immortal being sat in silence, contemplating a universe that had suddenly become much more frightening. Somewhere far away, on a small blue planet, humans were going about their brief lives, loving and fighting and dying and being reborn in their children. They did not know that the galaxy feared them. They did not know that their mortality, their greatest weakness, had become their greatest strength. They only knew that life was short, and they had no intention of wasting it. The science division of the Concordat occupied an entire planet. Laboratories stretched across continents. Research stations floated in the upper atmosphere. Research stations floated in the upper atmosphere. Underground vaults held experiments that had been running for 10,000 years. Knowledge was sacred to the Concordat. They had been gathering it since before humans learned to make fire. Lead. Scientist Exial had spent 3,000 years studying biology. She had mapped the genetics of 10,000 species. She had watched evolution unfold across millennia on 100 different worlds. She thought she understood life, then she studied the humans. And everything she knew fell apart. Their cellular structure is catastrophically flawed, she reported to the Council of Eternity. Their DNA accumulates errors with every replication. Their telomeres degrade over time. Their organs wear out. Their immune systems eventually fail. By any rational measure, they should not exist. The council listened in silence. The screens showed images of human biology, cells dividing and dying, hearts beating and stopping, brains forming and degrading. It was a horror show of impermanence. Every other intelligent species in the galaxy has found ways to repair this damage, Dexial continued. We regenerate. We transfer consciousness to new bodies. We exist as energy patterns that do not decay. The humans have done none of these things. They remain trapped in bodies that are constantly breaking down. Then, they are primitive, Counselor Vexarn said. They simply have not developed the technology yet. That is what I thought at first, Dexial said. But I was wrong. The humans' mortality is not a bug in their design. It is a feature, and it has made them more dangerous than any species we have ever encountered. She changed the images on the screens. Now they showed charts of human development, the speed of their progress, the acceleration of their technology. 200 years ago, humans traveled by horse. 100 years ago, they built their first flying machines. 50 years ago, they walked on their moon. Today, they are developing faster than light theory. The pace of their advancement is unprecedented in galactic history. How is this possible? Elder Morathin asked. Because they die, Vexial said. Their short lives create something we do not have. Generations. She showed a diagram of human reproduction. Parents and children. Grandparents and grandchildren. Chains of mortality stretching back through time. Every 20 to 30 years, a new generation of humans is born. Each generation is slightly different from the last. Their DNA mixes and mutates. Their culture shifts and changes. What works is kept. What fails is discarded. They evolve faster than any species we have ever seen. Evolution requires millions of years, Crickstill objected. Natural evolution does. Human evolution is different. It is cultural as well as biological. Ideas evolve. Technologies evolve. Each generation builds on the work of the previous generation and adds something new. They do not have time to perfect anything, so they improve everything, constantly, relentlessly. The screen showed human technology advancing through the centuries. Stone tools became metal tools. Metal tools became machines. Machines became computers. Computers became artificial minds. Each step took only decades. Each step built on the last. We take 1,000 years to develop a new technology, Vexial said. We study it carefully. We test it thoroughly. We make sure it is perfect before we implement it. The humans do not have this luxury. They cannot wait 1,000 years. They will be dead in 100. So they rush, Counselor Vexarn said. They make mistakes. Yes, they make many mistakes. Their history is full of failed experiments and abandoned projects and ideas that did not work. But they learn from each failure. They adapt. They try again. Where we take one careful step, they take 100 wild leaps. Most of those leaps fail, but some succeed. And the ones that succeed carry them forward faster than we can imagine. Vexial brought up one final image. It showed a human child holding hands with an elderly human. 3 generations in a single photograph. Grandmother, mother, daughter. This is their secret weapon, she said. Not their aggression. Not their fearlessness. Their continuity. When a human scientist dies, her students continue her work. When a human leader falls, his followers carry on his vision. Nothing is lost. Everything is passed down. They are not individuals racing against death. They are a river flowing through time. Each drop is temporary, but the river goes on forever. The council sat in stunned silence. They have turned mortality into immortality, Elder Morathin said slowly. Not for individuals. For their species. More than that, Dexial said. They have turned mortality into a crucible, a forge. The pressure of death has shaped them into something harder and sharper than any immortal species. We have no enemies because we have no urgency. We have no urgency because we have no death. Our civilization is stable but static, peaceful but stagnant. And the humans? The humans are chaos. They are fire. They burn through challenges that would take us millennia to overcome. They crash against problems again and again until the problems break. They are not better than us. They are faster than us. And in a universe where change is the only constant, speed is everything. She turned off the screens. The council chamber fell into shadow. We thought death was a weakness, Dexial said. We thought the humans were fragile creatures to be pitied. We were wrong. Death is not their weakness. Death is their engine. It drives them forward when we would stand still. It pushes them to heights we cannot reach because we have no reason to climb. Counselor Vexarn's thought patterns flickered with something that might have been fear. What do we do? I do not know, Dexial admitted. We have never encountered anything like them. We have never needed to. Perhaps we should fear them. Perhaps we should learn from them. Perhaps we should simply stay out of their way and watch what they become. She looked at the empty screens, thinking of the small blue planet far away. Because whatever they become, she said, they will become it fast. And the galaxy will never be the same. The final session of the Council of Eternity lasted for what humans would call 3 weeks. Representatives from across the Concordat gathered to decide the fate of humanity. It was the most important meeting in 10,000 years. The immortals debated in their slow, careful way, weighing every option, considering every outcome. Some argued for quarantine. Build a barrier around the human solar system. Let them live and die within their small corner of space. Keep them contained until they either destroyed themselves or evolved into something less dangerous. Others argued for subjugation. Send the fleets. Conquer Earth. Put the humans under Concordat control before they grew too powerful to stop. It would be easy. The humans had primitive technology. They had no defenses against weapons that had been perfected over millennia. A few whispered about extinction. Remove the threat entirely. It would be merciful, some said. The humans were suffering anyway, trapped in their dying bodies. End their pain. End the danger they represented. Velthrix listened to all of these arguments. He had spent months among the humans now. He had walked their streets and eaten their food and listened to their music. He had watched them laugh at jokes and cry at funerals and hold each other in moments of joy and sorrow. He had seen something the other immortals had not. When his turn came to speak, he stood before the council and said something that shocked them all. We should do nothing. The chamber erupted in confusion. Voices overlapped. Lights flickered. Thought patterns clashed. Velthrix waited for silence. The humans are not our enemies, he said. They are our teachers. Teachers. Counselor Vexon's patterns pulsed with disbelief. What could those brief creatures possibly teach us? How to live, Velthrix said simply. He stepped forward, his light growing brighter. He had prepared for this moment. He had thought about what he would say. But now that the time had come, he spoke from something deeper than thought. Something the immortals had forgotten they possessed. I have lived for 12,000 years, he said. I have seen wonders beyond counting. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have studied the mysteries of the universe. And in all that time, do you know what I have accomplished? No one answered. Nothing, Velthrix said. I have accomplished nothing of consequence. I have drifted through the centuries like dust on solar winds. I have attended meetings and filed reports and observed from a distance. I have never fought for anything, never sacrificed for anything, never burned with passion for anything, because I had forever. And when you have forever, nothing matters. He turned to face the elder council members, beings who had lived for 50,000 years, 100,000. Minds so old, they had forgotten what youth felt like. Look at us, Velfrix said. We are immortal, but we are not alive. We exist, but we do not live. We have conquered death, but in doing so, we have lost the very thing that makes life worth living. And what is that? Elder Morathin asked quietly. Urgency, Velfrix said. Purpose. The knowledge that time is running out. The fire that burns in a heart that knows it will not beat forever. He showed them images from Earth, not war this time. Not death. Life. A mother holding her newborn child, knowing she had only decades to love it. An old man planting a tree he would never see fully grown. Young lovers promising forever to each other, knowing forever meant only 50 years. Artists creating masterpieces in the shadow of their own mortality. Scientists working through the night because they might not have another night. They know something we have forgotten, Velfrix said. They know that life is precious because it ends. They know that love is beautiful because it is brief. They know that every moment matters because there are so few moments. And this knowledge makes them burn with a light we cannot match. You want us to become mortal? Counselor Vex Arn asked. No, I want us to remember what mortality taught us before we conquered it. I want us to stop drifting and start living. I want us to find causes worth dying for, even if we cannot die. I want us to feel the urgency that drives the humans to greatness. Velfrix paused. His light dimmed with something like sadness. The humans will change the galaxy, he said. They will challenge our assumptions. They will question our traditions. They will push and pull and fight for things we stopped fighting for long ago. They will be chaotic and unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. Then we must stop them. No. Velfrix's light flared. We must join them. We must learn from them. We must let their fire rekindle our own. Because they have remembered something that we forgot when we conquered death. What? Elder Morathin asked. What have they remembered? Velfrix thought of Elina Vasquez, the old woman with the young eyes, the mortal who had taught an immortal what it meant to be alive. That life is not measured in years, he said. It is measured in what you do with them. The council fell silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one moved. The immortals sat with thoughts that had not troubled them for millennia. Then, slowly, Elder Morathin rose from his seat of shadows. He was the oldest being in the chamber. He had seen the birth of stars and the death of galaxies. He had forgotten more than most species would ever learn. I have lived for 200,000 years, he said, and I cannot remember the last time I felt truly alive. The human is right. We have conquered death, but somewhere along the way, we lost life. He looked at the images of Earth still glowing on the screens. The brief, burning humans going about their precious days. Let them come, he said. Let them challenge us. Let them remind us what we have forgotten. Perhaps their fire will warm our ancient bones. And so it was decided. The Concordat would not quarantine humanity, would not subjugate them, would not destroy them. Instead, they would welcome them, learn from them. Let the mortals teach the immortals the meaning of a life well lived. 500 years later, human ambassadors served alongside immortal diplomats. Human scientists worked with ancient researchers. Human soldiers stood beside beings of crystal and light and shadow, facing threats that emerged from the darkness between stars. They called it the mortality doctrine. The principle that those with the least time often had the most to give dot, and when the darkness came, when ancient horrors rose from the void to consume all life in the galaxy, It was the humans who led the charge against them. Not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they had looked into the face of death every day of their short lives. They knew it like an old friend, and they were not afraid. On a memorial built after the final battle, words were carved in 1,000 languages. Words that captured what the mortals had taught the immortals. Words that Elena Vasquez had spoken long ago, before she died, before she became a legend. We who are about to die have already won, because we chose to live. The galaxy remembered. And in remembering, they finally understood. Death was never the enemy. Fear was. And the humans had never been afraid.